Why should anyone care about Brexit? It's simple. Whether the UK leaves or stays in the EU affects us all. Brexit supporters say leaving would get rid of job-killing regulation and free Britain to decide its own laws and trading partners. Some pro-Europeans worry that exit would weaken both Britain and the EU, with the bloc unravelling at increasing speed. But let's look at the brass tacks. First, the UK budget. British taxpayers stand to gain about £12 billion a year from reduced contributions to the EU budget. Britain would then need to decide whether to compensate farmers or others whose incomes depend on the EU. Second, prosperity. Outside the EU, Britain loses its full access to a single market that covers 500 million people in 28 countries, so Brits who buy French wine or German cars might face higher prices. The UK would have greater freedom to draw up its own regulations, although British companies that export to the EU could face tariffs and restrictions. The UK would also sacrifice free trade agreements with 60 non-EU countries. The question then arises of how keen large international companies might be to locate European operations in Britain. Then there's immigration. Outside the EU, Britain will have more freedom to limit immigration from European countries. Opinion polls suggest that would be popular. But it also means that as a Brit, if you fell in love with a Swede or an Italian, you couldn't guarantee you'd be able to settle together in Britain. And the 2 million other Brits who might want to live elsewhere in the EU might have to think again. So if Britain leaves, it will need to agree a new deal with the EU, which might bring back some of the joys and the irritations of membership. One last consideration: the Scots. If the UK leaves, there's a risk that the very constitution of the UK could be called into question if Scotland decides to pack its bags to stay in the EU. The big question is whether Britain is better off as part of a European club or going it alone. Leave or stay, Brexit matters to us all.